There we go. Got it. Crushed it. So the problem is that Miami decided that they were going to discontinue our email addresses. And
Uh-huh.
so I didn't realize how much of my life was dependent on my school email, to be honest. And so a lot
You
of
found
my,
out?
yeah, I've been figuring it out kind of as I go. Like, oh, this email address no longer exists. You can't sign in on this platform this way. And I'm like, oh, perfect, great. So happy to have discovered that in this capacity.
Oh,
And then
shit.
at that point, it's also like, okay, you can't hit the forgot password button because you can't email that
Yep.
email
It's
address
going to go
anymore. So,
back to yeah,
yep. So I'm kind of, yeah.
working your way through that.
Anyways, yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for bearing with me through that. I haven't had a video interview in at all this year in 2024 because the last interview that I did was with River and we did it in person. So, this is the first video interview I've done in 2024. So,
That's
welcome
awesome.
to AA. Hey, hi, hello. This is Sarah, your host, and today I have a special guest with me, and it's kind of in the spirit of, I guess, Mother's Day. So my mom is on the episode this week. So, Mom, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I think you introduced me already. I'm Sarah's mom. Uh,
Yep,
What what else do you need to know? What else is important about me?
that's true.
I'm
Um,
also Nico's mom and David's mom.
that's true. Those are
Yeah.
all facts. Those are all statements that are true. So I guess that's what the episode largely is. So last fall, I did a series with my dad called Dad and Daughtering when I was driving from Boston to San Diego, which it's kind of funny to look back at that period of time because my life was changing so much then and then it wasn't done changing. And so now has really been the most stagnant that it's been in kind of a year. And even at that, like I'm still looking for change again. So that is, I guess, my continual evolution of life here. But don't let that distract from the topic at hand here. Anyways, so I wanted to bring my mom on to have a similar segment to the segment that my dad and I had of the dad and daughtering, where you talk more in depth with your parents and acknowledge the fact that they are also main characters and that they're not just your mom, like they were someone before they were your mom. And so this is largely attributing to that and just happens to coincide with the week that Mother's Day is. It's not going to be airing the week that Mother's Day is, but we're doing our best here.
Getting in the mood.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the first question that I wanted to ask is what was your life like before having kids? So if you had to give an autobiography in events that have happened in your life that were significant, um, before you had children and what your life was like before kids, and we'll start there and then move into what was your life when you found out you were having kids, and then what was your life or what is your life now? Not what was your life, because you're not
Right.
done being a mom. That's not a job that you can escape, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. It's not in the spirit of your podcast at all because there I watch it and it's usually uplifting and happy messages. Yeah,
That's kind of what I wanted
Sarah
to get.
smiles.
Well, that's what I kind of wanted to get to this season is I'm working on a new rebrand. And last year it was more of a focus on holistic and like spirituality and doing what fulfills you. And I think that that's still largely a message that I'm looking to promote, but also at
Right.
the same time, it's authenticity. So not trying to shield emotions or not trying to shield the realisms that are your 20 somethings. Like your 20s typically suck. Like right now, I am having fun, but I'm broke. Like that's not a life that I want to
Yeah.
continue to live. So it's all about balance and it's all about being as honest as you can because that's what people typically relate to. And it's seemingly the more individualistic that your story is, the more that other people connect with it
Yeah.
because they feel alone in a situation. So they look to other people to try to connect with them about situations that they are facing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was just going to tell you, I thought, oh, how do you prepare for this? Because that's the kind of person I am. Um, so I was listening to the podcast of you and Dad, um, which I had not previously listened to. I like listened to a little bit of one and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm eavesdropping, like I should not be listening to this. But so I listened to them. The thought I had was, wow, um, I don't deserve to be called this girl's mother. Because I started listening to it and I thought, Sarah, you might not believe this or think, this could be possible. How can somebody just shut that out like that? But, I left you and your brothers. Um, you are not but 12 going on 13 years old. And people could think, oh, they divorced, with the left divorce. No, no, I left you guys. So, when you ask me what have I learned from being a parent, well, don't, I haven't earned the right to answer that question because I wasn't there. And I chose to ignore it, not look at it. Do you know, like sometimes if something has gone really bad, you feel like if I don't look at this, I won't know how bad it is.
mhm.
And so that's what that was for me. I'm not saying I didn't. I also don't want to disparage your dad, who's a good man. Um, I just did. We just didn't belong together. I did want to be out of that marriage, but I did not want to not be your mom. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. I don't know what kind of answers I can give you to, being a parent. Yeah, so
Well,
let's
I
go
think
on.
that's also part of it is we're all human, and I think that your story leading up to becoming a mother is probably not like most other people's. And maybe it is, and that's largely what the podcast focuses on. Like our stories aren't too much different than other people's. So
Yeah.
you're not alone in the feeling that you have currently. I also want to say that I still view you as a mother or a parent figure, although you might not feel like you've earned that title. That's still how I perceive you as a person and the role that I see you having in my life. Now, when we define what parent truly means, that typically has different definitions of what that is, but it's what I've learned growing up. And it's what I've learned of how the dynamic between you and I are, and how Nico and you are, and how David and you are, and even how you and Dad are. It's not all the same. And that's just something that I learned in my 25 years on the planet. So it's not it's not something that I think that I would wish on to anybody is to
No,
have this
no.
experience. But at the same time, I think it was definitely formative, and it's definitely caused me to be the person I am today, whether that is a good thing or a bad thing.
Ah,
But it's it's what I it's cards I drew, and it's the lot that I got in life. So I can't choose to be anything other than content or happy with it. I mean, I can choose to be upset with it, but what does that really get me? I mean, last year at this time, we were at a spiritual retreat, which is when I had my spiritual awakening, and which caused the last rebrand of the podcast. And it was pretty much just emphasizing the fact that everything that happens to you in your life, you might not necessarily be in control of, but you are in control of your response to it. And that also plays into things that happened a long time ago. And if that's a burden that you want to continue to carry around, if that's something, if you leaving us when we were kids is a burden that I want to continue to carry around, then I can. I can continue to carry resentment towards you. I can continue to carry emotional baggage. I can continue to carry abandonment issues, but is that something that I want to continue to carry? No. And is me carrying that going to do anybody any favors besides for cause me discontent? No, because at the end of the day, when you left, me hating you, and I'm going to say that in quotes because I don't think that anybody should realistically hate their parents. And I say that because I think that people use hate, and you might hate your parents. I don't know, but I think that people use hate too freely, and I don't want that to be a common word that people use. I mean, people hate Adolf Hitler, which rightfully so, but I don't think you should hate your parents because they brought you into this world. If anything, they brought you into this world. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get at in this ramble of
Is that
hating,
I'm not on the same bar as Adolf Hitler.
exactly, yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
No,
Jesus.
no,
Oh, God. Okay, we can go on now.
no, it's that I think that people use hate too freely. And when I say that I hated you, the only real feeling that I got because you weren't there to know that I hated you. You weren't there to know that I had discontentment towards you. So the only person that was truly, really affecting was me. And the only person that was bothered by that was me for years and years and years until recently. And so I think that that plays into the larger role of the dynamic that you have with your parents, the dynamic that you have with other people, the dynamic that you have with potentially your future children. So I think that it ended up being a learning lesson. Granted, it might not have been a learning lesson that I was ready to receive at that age, but
No.
forced me to grow up a little bit faster than I think other people, which I can appreciate. Anyways,
First question, should I answer it?
yeah, go ahead. Let's
Are we
answer
going
the
in that
first
direction?
question. Yeah. So we're gonna go with what was your life like before you had kids? And in the lens of put yourself in my shoes of you were a 20 something or you were an 18-year-old or whatever age and
Right.
you weren't even thinking of what life was going to be like, what your current life is like.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's, I mean, I liked sports a lot. Um, I liked school. I don't know who actually says that. I actually liked going to school. I liked people. Generally speaking, I was that person that was everybody's friend, if you will. I didn't get involved with clickiness and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, easygoing, athletic, fun loving, definitely like to have a good time. Definitely became very precocious at an early age. You know, started, drinking in middle school pretty much. Then,
Just to hang out with people or because that was something that you wanted to do or what
it
really
was,
stemmed that desire?
that's, it wasn't peer pressure. If anything, I was the one peer pressuring other people. Like, ooh, I remember I was in eighth grade and Katie Sims had come over to spend the night. Her dad was the senator from Idaho, side note. So hopefully nobody from that family's listening. But I she had come over to spend the night and my dad drank, so there was some Coors in the refrigerator. I was like, "Oh, we should see what this is like, right?" So we passed that can of Coors back between each other and wound up just kind of it started as an experiment thing. Like, "Oh, let's experiment. All these other people think this is so great. Why do they think it's so great?" So it wasn't to fit in. It was never peer pressure. Um, I don't think I was somebody that was like oh, I got to do this because everybody else is. I
Hmm.
might have been too oblivious for it. I don't know. Um, so same thing with marijuana. Like, let's just try this. I did not like marijuana, so that was free and
Yeah.
done. Never did it again. Um, cocaine. Tried cocaine. Uh,
All in middle school?
no, no, this is pretty much high school now. Because like Katie Sims, that was like eighth grade. So,
Mm.
but it was a quick segue into drinking, hanging out. She had an older sister who the parents were out of town a lot, so that she would have parties at her house, and yeah, you got just go and hang out with people and go drink, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's how that was.
Hmm. So, how did that play into, you said you were interested in sports and in school. How did drinking and drugs and partying relay into your fondness of both?
Yeah, so it didn't. Something had to go. And it was the sports and academics, right? Well, it was the sports, really, because it was like you start not showing up for things and it starts to be difficult. Like, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to go out on Friday night and party with your friends or, whatever?
Hmm.
But it kind of had, I started to have oh, I dislike this stuff now. I dislike sports now because it's taking my time away from partying and being with friends because I love to go hang out with all my friends.
Hmm.
And then school was like high school. I didn't have to, I don't know about you, but I didn't have to work very hard at high school.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's just like I just did it.
Yeah,
Um,
mine was you showed up and I was smart enough to get A's even without going to school. So I think senior year, there was a point in time where I didn't have a consecutive 5-day week for the entire semester, but I still graduated with a 4.25 GPA.
right. See, exactly. It's like you can get by.
Hmm.
I used to think, oh, that's something worth bragging about, right? I did really well on the SATs as well. Um, and again, what is that a measure of? What is the SAT a measure of, right?
Your ability to follow instructions.
And take a test,
Yeah.
right? And when your school, so I went to Fairfax County School Systems, which is one of the best school systems in the nation, whatever. But you know why? They taught to the test.
Yep.
All my peers did very well as also.
Yep.
Um, so I did really well on the SATs, got into school, no problem at all. Didn't even have to think about it, you know. But then that's when the shit hit the fan, right? When you got to college is when you really have to show up and do the shit. And you didn't have the habits in place that made you able to be a better student because
Hmm.
you weren't a good student to begin with. Now
Hmm.
all of a sudden you need those habits of how do you study? How do you look at information critically? How do you learn new stuff?
Hmm.
It wasn't there.
Yeah.
But the desire to party and be with friends was still there.
Yep.
So that's how that went.
Yeah. But from what I remember, you played soccer at George Mason still,
Correct.
and you played by scholarship, right? So you earned your spot on the team prior to actually arriving at the university, correct?
Yes. Uh,
So what was that like? Because obviously, like I went through the scouting process for softball, obviously didn't elect to follow through on that. I told dad that he wasn't going to get a collegiate athlete and a engineering major. So
yeah, I
he
get
told me he was only going to pay for school if I got an engineering degree. So that really limited my choices of, okay, well, I guess I'm not doing softball in college anymore. But that was still like another job for me was getting recruited and messaging recruiters and going to clinics and going to whatever camps that a college would have
Mhm.
and trying to figure out what school I even wanted to end up at. That was like pretty much a part-time job.
Yeah. So, I, number one, schools, colleges, sports, all that is just so amped up now.
Mm-hmm.
Like to get into even a mid-level school anymore is damn near impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You can have found the cure for cancer and you're still not going to Ohio State.
Oh yeah, especially if you're white male. If you're white male, you're screwed.
Yeah, so back then it wasn't quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you didn't have all these different fronts that you had to be working on. Like, oh, I also did this tour in Brazil where I volunteered my time at a laboratory looking at mosquitoes and how they carry their, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That there was none of that. As far as the soccer went, the big thing for me, I should say, I'm not trying to be self-deprecating, but I wasn't that great at soccer. But girls had just started playing soccer. Soccer itself was not a big sport when I was young. As a matter of fact, it was I had to play on a co-ed team until I got to like around middle school,
Mm-hmm.
then sixth grade. And then I started playing for a travel team,
Mm-hmm.
which that was the shit. If
Mm-hmm.
you were going to be good, you played on a travel team,
Yeah.
which a little bragging thing. It's not really bragging, but because I had nothing to do with it. But we played against Mia Hamm.
Oh, nice.
Yes, our high school did.
Mm-hmm.
So she played for Lake Braddock.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, actually played against Mia Hamm.
Wow,
So
did you win?
no, we didn't. Um,
Shocking.
but I remember the only thing I really thought about her was she had really great hair.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even wear it back into like a ponytail holder. She had it like feathered back, which is what they used to call it, feathering your hair.
Yeah, I think it's now like fox hair, like fox layers or something like that.
Okay. Like Farrah
Something.
Fawcett kind of hair.
Yeah, it's
What we
coming
call it.
back.
So she had this real thick hair and it stayed looking like that the whole freaking game.
Hmm.
So, and you can tell your dad this is not like a Denzel Washington thing. I really did.
I did hear about that story.
Denzel, I
Apparently, my
did.
mom met Denzel Washington, and the meeting in question was
Denzel was not aware that he met me.
he was 3 blocks away, and my mom saw his entourage and him. So that was her meeting Denzel Washington.
Okay, poor choice of words.
I
But
saw
your
walked
father
past.
never let me forget that.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to Denzel Washington.
Mhm. It's valid.
So So yeah, so back to the soccer and getting scholarship. I played on a travel team. Burl Bruffy, Cheryl Bruffy, they called her Burl though. She was one of our coaches, kind of assistant coaches. She played for George Mason. It's a
Hmm.
women's team. And um, so I kind of got introduced to the team through Cheryl.
Hmm.
And they liked how I played.
Hmm.
Like there was no sending in a tape, begging for your position, whatever.
Yeah.
None of that. But again, this is like I also got an offer from High Point University um, to play on the team they were starting. They didn't even have a soccer team yet. They were just going
Hmm.
to start this soccer team. So, and it was contingent. They wanted another one of the girls I played with to also play, that we both could come together.
So it was either they got both of you or they got none of you.
I'm not really sure, but there was definitely that we had a good dynamic. Mandy and I
Okay.
played really well together, really well. Um, yeah, I don't really remember exactly. But
what
yeah,
the offer was.
yeah. So anyways, back to soccer. Uh, went to George Mason. First year, didn't really play a lot. Wasn't into putting myself out there to become better, which
Hmm.
is, I think, what they always hope when you
Right.
become a college athlete, that okay, we like high school, we like Mount Vernon.
Yeah, it's about potential.
Yep. And we see that we can make her like this.
Hmm.
Well, shit, all the damn time you had to put into that, and just really wasn't interested in doing that.
Hmm.
Then it kind of got into a self-destructive mode.
Hmm.
Mason had a strict no drinking on campus policy. I got caught drinking, um, not once, but twice. And after that, I was off the soccer team.
Hmm.
So I kind of think to myself, did I just want that to happen?
Right. Like you have an
Um,
out.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So not really anything to brag about, but that's how that happened.
Yeah. I mean, that I feel like is pretty similar to a lot of people's experience in college is you're trying to figure out who you are as a person. And in doing that, you tend to do some self-destructive things. I would say that I was not the healthiest version of myself when I was in college. And I am amazed and astounded by not only the behavior, but some of my actions that I did in college.
Oh yeah.
And am just confused how that even was allowed to happen. And luckily for me, there was never really any major repercussions besides for like falling out with some friends briefly, or that a guy would call me psychotic and rightfully so, and things
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Like it was
That's the
never,
fallout.
yeah. And it was never anything that was so bad that it was detrimental to my college career or my like personal integrity. But I would say in high school, I did a lot of self-deprecating things that were both disappointing to me, but also disappointing to dad, which if anyone has listened to my podcasts prior, I am a chronic daddy pleaser and everything that I do is to please my dad. And so the fact that I wasn't pleasing him was
Hurts.
yeah, more hurtful to me probably than him, to be completely honest. But
I think that parents like to set it up that way. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I talked to Erin Haymaker about this too, and she's like, yeah. And her parents are like the most lovely married couple ever, like high school sweethearts, still like still together today, like having the most amazing. I follow her mom on Facebook and I comment on I think every single one of her pictures, but yeah, so just one of those couples that like is the archetype of what you're trying to end up married
Yeah.
like.
She was a
And
neat.
even her,
I
even
mean, she
Erin
is a
was
neat lady.
she even was telling me that she has daddy issues. So even the people that are in healthy like family statuses or family dynamics
Yeah.
have
But
these
how did
different
they get
feelings.
there? You
How
know,
did
they
Erin get
help
there?
themselves.
So I would say that it's not a unique thing to me. It's not a unique thing to people that grew up in Canton, Ohio, but it's definitely something that I think everybody has a self-destructive period and that ends up playing off in either you realize that you have some sort of bar of integrity, and then you also have some sort of, okay, why am I doing this? And why is this happening? And then you start doing a little bit of introspection. And then you start realizing, okay, maybe I have abandonment issues. Maybe I'm a daddy pleaser, whatever have you. But I think then people start doing a self assessment. And I think that your college brain, because my college brain did not have the capacity to really realize that until post fact. But I think that that's largely like you drinking. Like I got caught going over to the neighbor's house to go mess around. Like, and it was very obvious. Like, and it was like I told my dad that I was going to somebody else's house who lived in our neighborhood, and I ended up going to our neighbor's house. It was winter. You could see my footsteps in the snow. Like, I am not a stupid person.
Right.
But that was stupid. And in my head, I look back on that and I'm like, I think I wanted to get caught. At least I
Yeah.
hope I think I did, like deep down there, or like that's
Right.
really a
Right.
lapse in
Let's just go
judgment.
with that.
Yeah, so I think that everybody has that moment of I was looking to get caught or I was looking to have some sort of recognition, because I think that you almost need that to then get help, of hoping that someone will reach out to you and be like, "Hey, this doesn't seem in character for you," or "This doesn't seem like what we saw." And so my question to you then, was there anybody like that where they came to you and were like, "Hey, Kim, this isn't normal behavior. Like, I'm a little concerned with how you're acting." I mean, aside from your coach, which they probably would say that because they obviously want you on your team. No, they didn't even say it.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like, well, shape up or ship out.
Yeah.
That was the message.
Yeah.
Um, there was nobody that was like, "Hey, look, you're going down this wrong path. Don't like how this is looking."
Mm-hmm.
No, no, I don't. And maybe there was, but I didn't see it or
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear it,
Mm-hmm.
whichever one.
Yeah.
So maybe the messages I wanted to hear were coming from my friends that I like to hang out with and go to bars with
Yeah.
and
Right. And they're
stuff.
like, thank God you don't have to go to soccer anymore.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Those are the voices I chose to listen to. So maybe there was somebody trying to say, but I just didn't listen to it.
Yeah. Unfortunately for you, you didn't have dad screaming at you when you returned back from said neighbor's house and said, "You're not driving your car anywhere, you're not going anywhere," and then give me a whole lesson on show me your friends, I'll show you your future, which I didn't realize how impactful that message was going to be to the rest of my life. But
But
yeah,
like
so
you said, the biggest part of that punishment of that whole thing was how you disappointed your father.
oh yeah, 100%. Like he,
Because you still talked about that for years.
mhm.
Like that stayed with you, that whole incident stayed with you for years. Like you didn't forgive yourself for it.
Oh no. Mm-mm.
And that is what it's like, how could I do this to my dad?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if dad wasn't who dad is, I might have been down a really negative path. That coupled with Nico is quite literally a younger clone of dad. And I was also disappointing Nico, who is also someone who I don't particularly enjoy disappointing. I remember very, very specifically on my NHS induction night that your older sibling, if they're a grade older, they typically are the individual that are inducting you into the National Honor Society.
Uh-huh.
And being that I was a good student, and again, I had a 4.25 GPA, I volunteered, I was on varsity sports, like I wasn't doing anything that was obscenely crazy, like going and smoking weed with some of my friends in high school and going and drinking on the weekends and sometimes during the weekdays. Um, it was just who I was doing it with is what was concerning both dad and Nico, because again, those are things that you do as a high schooler and even in college. And Nico did not talk to me the entire NHS induction. He did not look at me. He did not say anything to me. He inducted me into the National Honor Society, but did not say a word to me, did not take pictures with me after. And afterwards, we all came home, Dad, Nico, and I asked what was going on and why he wasn't talking to me. And he was mad that I was hanging out with the crowd that I was hanging out with. And he was like, "This is ridiculous. This is disgusting. I hate who you're becoming." And if I didn't have as blatantly honest and as blatantly to the point, like as blatantly blatant
Mm.
as Nico and Dad were, I could be a very different person than I am today. That is the fortunate thing on my behalf, is that I had people in my life that were willing to be very, very cut and honest with me of, if you continue to do this, not only are you going to put yourself in a bad spot, but we are no longer going to be people that can trust you to do things, and we are no longer going to be people that really identify with the person that you're becoming. And so obviously that scared the shit out of me. So I shaped up really, really fast.
But really what you're saying here is you had people in your life that who had no other motive to talk to you like that other than they loved you.
Yes.
I did not have that. No.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is?
Why I didn't have someone?
Or why
Uh,
you felt that you didn't have somebody?
right. I don't think I wasn't honest with myself, so I certainly wasn't being honest with other people. And I certainly didn't let my mother or father know what I was doing. They
Right.
didn't know what I was doing, and I sure as hell wasn't telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And Nana was hates drinking so much
Mm-hmm.
that it was almost like you couldn't talk to her.
Well, and I think that she also chose to ignore it, is
Yes,
that she wanted to remain, if that was something you did, then she did not want to know. And if she thought something, she wasn't going to ask because she truly did not want to know.
right. I totally agree with you. Yep. So there was no one telling me no,
Mm-hmm.
basically. There was no one calling me on my behavior. Nobody.
Mm-hmm. Which is hard,
So,
especially in your formative years of trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? What are my morals? What are my values? Who am I as a person? What do I want to be? Where am I putting myself in situations that are making me better? Are they making me worse? And you don't think about that as a 20 something. You don't think about that as when you're younger than that. You think that you're
no,
invincible, you think that you're indestructible, you think that nothing that you're going to do is really going to impact you too severely later on, which is quite frankly not the case. You didn't have anybody that was telling you no, you didn't have somebody that was basically instructing you on who to become and where your values should lie.
right.
From there, how did you make your next decisions? Like, what were the events that happened to you after you got kicked off the soccer team? Obviously, you remained at George Mason for some time.
Right. So I stayed there. And then each semester I did more poorly in class, um, until I would wind up on academic probation. And then I'd be like, oh my God, this is not, you know, servicing me at all. I got to get back. And I would do really good for a semester. And then I'd be back on academic probation. And then I felt like maybe I'm getting myself back together and I'm kind of finding myself. I'm kind of on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my brother passed away in an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, I didn't recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't recover from that. We had I mean, we were our own best friends growing up. Yeah. So, anyways, after David died, um, I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not gonna, I'm done trying with this college thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really lost focus on everything. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar.
Hmm.
There's actually a song starts like that.
Oh.
I was working in a waitress at a cocktail bar when I met you. So anyways, I met Gina Iannone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Gina was also working as a waitress in a cocktail bar.
Mm-hmm.
She had a friend coming to visit her, um, who she wanted me to meet him because they were really good friends. It was her best friend and whatever. We were going to go watch a movie. We were all going to go meet and watch this movie, which was the worst movie in the world.
Which was,
Sandlot.
that's a good movie.
Oh, it was horrible.
It's a good movie.
Oh, it
That's a
was so bad.
classic.
You know what
Okay.
made it bad? Is that damn slobbering dog.
Okay. Well.
I couldn't look at it. So anyways,
You
I didn't
didn't
want
see
to,
it the majority of the movie.
yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. They barely put the dog in the movie. The Beast. They
Oh,
barely
yeah,
put
yeah,
the.
yeah.
They
It
barely
was
put
in there more than I needed to see it.
the. Sure. Okay. Sure.
Okay. So, anyways, I was like, I had just gotten off work. Jean had gotten off work before me. So I'm driving home and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. So I pulled into the 7-Eleven and I was looking for a quarter in my car because I had to call on the payphone because I didn't want them to miss the movie,
Hmm.
right? If I got there and said, I'm not going to the movie, it's going to be too late.
So you called her home.
No. So I was going to, yes,
Oh,
where
okay.
she was,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I couldn't find a quarter in my freaking car. So I'm like, God damn it. Now I'm going to have to go to this movie.
Hmm.
So that's where I met your dad. Dad, as grandpa put it, I was the date that never went home.
Hmm. Endearing.
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm kind of in this turmoil place in my life where I've got no direction. I've got no foundation. Like I don't even have school to fall back on. I don't know who I am.
Hmm.
I haven't answered all those questions.
Hmm.
Like I'm basically developmentally stunted.
Hmm.
I'm not, I'm 23, but I'm not even acting 23. I'm acting 16.
Right.
So I met your dad. And what was attractive about your dad is, well, he had his shit together and all the things that you said about him, like he's going to tell you like it is. And he, he, he just made everything happen, you
Hmm.
know, and that was, looking back on it, that is like, the 5 love languages crap.
Yep.
I shouldn't say crap. It's
I
not
yeah, I
crap.
wouldn't call it crap. I would
I'm
say it's
sorry,
pretty.
Dr. Gray, if you happen to be watching this. I did not mean crap. I meant real solid shit. It really is though. So
Yeah.
the 5 languages of love. Um, Back then, I only saw it as he doesn't love me the way I need to be loved.
Hmm.
But now 54-year-old Kim can look back and be like, well, he was loving me the way
Yeah.
he showed love. And
Right.
that was by taking care of everything.
Hmm.
Everything was taken care of by that man.
Hmm.
You never wondered about anything. And he was the first person in my life who would tell me, call the bullshit.
Hmm.
You didn't meet Denzel Washington,
Yeah.
okay? But just to take that out into many, many, many other things.
Right.
Like you're not being responsible or you're not, that's kind of, why would you do that? That's not, you're not a very good friend.
Mhm.
You call it like it was.
Right.
So, yeah. So yeah, that's what I liked about your dad. So we were living in North Carolina at that time. So,
So you
well,
went from first date to living together.
okay, sorry. I did skip a lot of shit. So, all right. So first date was, met him through Gina. He went back to North Carolina, South Carolina, North Carolina at that time. Um, he went back to North Carolina. I went back to my job, job as a waitress. I think it was May that he called me. I don't know how long after he left, days, and invited me to go to St. Martin with him.
That's
Right?
right. I remember this. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, okay, yeah, love it. Love this idea, but I don't have any money. Like, I'm a waitress, right?
Hmm.
I make, $57 a night and I spend $57 a night.
Hmm.
So I have no money. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you 404 reasons why you're going to quit smoking. I was like, what? In other words, if you quit smoking, I'm going to buy your ticket.
Oh.
404 reasons, right? So that was the beginning of your father taking care of shit, right?
Hmm.
Nothing's bad for you. You're going to fucking quit. I'm gonna get you this ticket to St. Martin. Okay. I'm not telling you I'm not gonna date you if you're smoking. Like he at least took the edge off of it, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking you to St. Martin. So I forget at what point, like obviously went down there to fly out to go to St. Martin. I forget at what point, I believe it was on the airplane that I learned that his parents were going to be there, and his sister and his sister's husband and her sister's husband are and their 2-year old. I'm like, what? What the hell? I'm meeting this man's whole family, and I knew him for 3 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, we spent the week down there in St. Martin. It was great. And we came back, and he said, you don't have to go home. Basically, that's exactly what he said. You don't have to go home. So I moved in with your father in North Carolina.
Hmm.
I had no job. I had no skill, right? I never graduated college. I couldn't get a job. It was like, even as a waitress, like places just weren't hiring. Greenville, North Carolina was like this tiny little college town. So all the college jobs were taken.
Mm.
I never had a job. So I basically just stayed at the house while he went to work. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what dad's work schedule looked like:
Mm-hmm.
5 a.m. to 7 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Took care of Railway. Railway and I were good friends.
Railway was our cat.
So, anyways, he got transferred to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Woo!
And yeah, that's right. That's right. So he got transferred to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we moved up there together, and we were staying in the Residence Inn because, right, we had nowhere to live yet. So we were at the Residence Inn. I don't remember how long we were there for like a month, but I don't remember how long into the time we were staying there that one day we woke up, and he sits up and he's looking around the room, and he goes, well, I guess if you're going to follow me up here, I better buy you a ring.
Mm.
So
Romantic.
that was my proposal.
Nice.
Yep. So we got the ring. So at this time I'm 23 years old.
Still,
Okay, think
because no
about
time
that,
has passed.
right? 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm
think
25 with no prospects, so.
about right, 23 years old. So we got married when I was 24. Your dad was 29.
Mm-hmm.
And as you discussed in the dad and daughtering episode, um, David was premature,
Mm-hmm.
as Pop put it. Um, we had already planned to get married. Um, and yeah, so I was 3 months pregnant at my wedding. Yeah,
Nice.
classy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. Champagne toast, am I right?
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So then 6 months later, we had David,
Mm-hmm.
little Davy Doodle. So we didn't know shit about fuck. Yeah, we didn't know diddly squat
Mm-hmm.
about kids. Like I never even babysat before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they're just giving you this kid, and they're like, okay, bye, bye, bye.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay, okay. I just loved him so much. I just remembered how much I did not want to have a child.
Mm-hmm.
When I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God. I mean, and you can imagine, I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I am a child still.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember I loved him so much, so much. And it opened this whole new world of vulnerability up,
Mm-hmm.
because now when he was sad, I was sad.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole new world of this is the rest of your life, that, yes, when they're happy, you're happy. Um, I just didn't know I could love another person. That was 1995, actually. I was 25, 24 when I was pregnant. Um, so
You were my age when you had a kid.
yeah, yep, yep. So we were so successful with that, we decided to have another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because, oh, this was the deal. I was like, okay, this is it. I can't do any more. I'm done. We're going to have one kid, and that's okay. He's going to be great. I only have enough love for this one kid.
Mm-hmm.
So then we were at the Burger King play place. Yeah, whatever.
Romantic.
Yeah. And I just see David. There's other kids there, and they like brothers and sisters, whatever, playing together. And here's David just all by himself, just playing all by himself. And I'm like, oh, hell no.
Okay, well, David is now what, 27, 28, and still does that, still plays by himself. So
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
I
But
would. He would. David
yeah,
enjoys
he
playing
might.
by himself.
Anyhow, so we
Anyhow.
decided to have Nico. So then Nico came along in 97.
Yep.
So that was 2 years now. Been married for 2 years, two kids. I'm 27. Um, and then I was really done. We are done. Not doing this anymore. Yep. And then, what, I don't know. Nico was 6, 7 months old. We're like, we're going to go on a trip. We've not been on a trip together since we were married. So Nana
Since St.
came.
Martin.
Yeah, you said
Since
St.
your first
Martin,
date.
our first date. So Nana came, watched David and Nico, and we went to Paris for 5 days. We were in Paris, and I remember packing my stuff and thinking, ooh, I'm packing the Tampax, but I should have used them last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, if I don't use these Tampax while we're in Paris, I'm in trouble.
Mm.
Yeah. So we were there, and we were outside Notre Dame, and this is cliche, and I'm not making this shit up. Check with your father. Gypsy woman comes up to us, and she's like, I take your picture. I take your picture. This beautiful place, this beautiful place. And she's like, come here, come here. And like, okay, this is really weird. She did take our picture.
She
And
didn't
then,
steal your camera.
huh?
She didn't steal your camera.
No, but maybe she stole our souls. I don't
Oh,
know. But no, so she wants, of course, she wants you to, the picture is free, but she wants you to give her a tip.
yeah, for sure.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. We bought the tip. But anyway, she starts talking to us, and she goes, you will show your daughter this picture. And yeah, your dad's like, we have two boys. Cause your dad, he's not playing any of this mystic bullshit. He's
Yeah.
like, two boys. And she's like, oh no, no, you have a daughter. And she looks at me and she hands me the picture, and I'm like, bitch, crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? I had a daughter.
C'est moi.
Handed me that picture. 98. So I was 28 years old and had three kids under the age of 3.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So then your life was then cemented as you didn't really have a I guess identity is the word I will choose to use here. You didn't have an
Oh, no,
identity.
you can use that word.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you didn't have an identity when you met dad other than being, as you would call it, a college dropout and a waitress.
Yep.
That was your identity. And
Yep.
then you were looking to figure out, okay, how am I going to get by? You meet dad, figure out how you're going to get by because he provides a way for you to
Yes.
get by. And
100%.
then you have kids. So then you become a mom, and then your identity becomes mom and wife. So at that point, you're 28, you're a mom and a wife, and that's really not an identity. That's descriptors. So at that point, were you realizing that this actually isn't who I am? This is not my identity?
Yeah, that is a great way to put it, Sarah. You should be a therapist.
No.
Um, Anywho, uh, yeah, it's kind of, well, I'll take it one step further and say those are descriptors, mom and wife, but I didn't choose that identity.
Right.
I
It was
did
given to
because
you.
I said, yes, I'll
Yes.
marry,
Yeah. Everything
but
was consensual, but it was just not, if you had,
well thought out.
yes.
Yeah. Like I had not figured out who I was and what I needed and what my contribution to the world was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just became mom and wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, whether you like it or not, that's your contribution to the world and that's who you are. You're mom and wife.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of struggle from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left your father, there was a lot of internal struggle for me
Mm-hmm.
on so many different fronts.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a God? What is my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? What have I done? How do I start over? How do I get to find
Mm-hmm.
out who I am?
Mm-hmm.
It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like your chance is gone. You do not get to be
Anything
in,
that what you are right now.
yep, yeah.
Which, to be fair, is a lot of what I'm experiencing as a 25-year-old. I have no idea what I want to be. I have a good idea of what I think will fulfill me professionally and what I'm looking to get out of a significant other. But at the end of the day, there's so much ambiguity that's in my life. There's so much questioning that I have of, is there a God? Is there a higher power? Is there something that I should be following? Am I doing everything that I should be doing in this lifetime? And am I doing it in an order that makes sense? Am I gonna set myself up to be married by the time that I'm still able to have kids? So I think those are all very rational questions for you to be asking yourself. But the difference between 25-year-old me and 25-year-old you is a marriage and children.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think um, you have done a better job of checking in with yourself. Is this who I want to be? And am I with who I want to be with? And, you know, you've
Mhm.
done a much better job.
Well, because I think it really all stems from that phrase that dad taught me when I was younger is show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And people hear this in a variety of ways of you are who you surround yourself with, or you are the summation of the parts that you are with, or whatever
Yeah.
way that you have
Oh,
heard it
yeah.
before. But you are who you are surrounded by, and you are a product of your environment. And so if you don't like who you are, it might actually boil down to who you're electing to hang out with and who you're electing and where you're electing to place your time. So with that, I can imagine, okay, you're only really spending your time as a 28-year-old with your friend, not with your friends, with your family, your immediate family, your children and your husband.
And remember, now, dad's thing is he was a provider.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do providers provide? he was on at 5 o'clock in the morning and he didn't come back until 5, 6, 7 at night. And
Hmm.
sometimes he wasn't even there all night. He'd get a call in the middle of the night and have to go out.
Right.
So again, I'm not faulting your father for that. That's just how it was.
Right.
So now I don't even have an adult in my life.
Hmm. You come to a point when I want to say 12 when you left,
Hmm.
and that puts you at what, 35, 32,
41.
41. Oh, my math is bad. Cut that part out.
It's because I looked so young.
Sure, sure. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So that puts you at 41, and you realize this is, I do have a choice and a voice in what I do and say, and what I'm going to choose to do is this. And so, at what point did you decide I'm going to completely, I won't say, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to
Go ahead.
abandon who you
Hmm.
were
Yep.
and your identity? And the only way to do that was to abandon everything, was
Yep.
to leave your husband, was to leave your kids, to not have any reminders of who you were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly. Um, so I went to nursing school, right?
Hmm.
It's not like I just went from being a mom to leaving. I went to nursing school. And when I was in nursing school, I start meeting people, you
Hmm.
know, I being a nurse, you meet other women that are professionals. And I'm like, I'm really identifying with these people
Hmm.
working. It's a totally different world, right? And now I have the means to leave, right? I
Hmm.
can support myself. I wanted to leave, but there was no impetus. There was no, okay, this is it. I'm going to leave. And that would have been the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Right thing to do would have been this to be a planned separate, like a planned thing.
Right.
Let's work this out. You'll go live here and you can see the kids on these days and I'll live here and but that's not how it went. So yeah, it kind of came down as a crash more than a because divorce is never easy for anybody, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but this was particularly ugly.
Right.
So it kind of all happened at the same time. And it was more your father saying, your father asked me, and I remember we were in the bathroom, uh, and he said,
Massive bathroom, by the way, everyone. This thing is
right,
the
it was
size of
just
a
more like,
bedroom.
right, it was
Yeah.
huge that nobody was going to the bathroom. Let me
Yeah.
just make that
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. Like this
Okay.
place, the bathroom was larger than my bedroom.
Right.
Anyways,
So
continue.
just to be clear, it was just a location. And your father said to me, do you want to leave? Just out of the blue. Do you want to leave? I said yes. And that was it. That was it. It seems like you're just picking a little thread, but that thread took the whole sweater apart.
Hmm.
And that was it.
That was it. Except it wasn't. Well, it was out of the marriage and then of the relationship that I had known my whole life, which was, I guess, what you would consider a normal mother figure, and then didn't really have a normal relationship for the last, I don't know, probably 10 years. Um, from the time
Yeah.
I
So
was,
that was 2011.
yeah. So I don't think that we really started having a relationship again until I went to college.
Yeah,
You showed up to
that's
things.
fair.
It was kind
Yes.
of like an aunt, if you will, but not Aunt Karen, because Aunt Karen is the best.
Aunt
Anyways,
Karen was more of a mother to you than I was.
yes. So I won't
So,
say that, but
yeah.
yeah, so it was more like an aunt. Like she would come, like my mom would come to like graduation, and yeah, that was pretty much it.
Different things.
Graduation.
I think I came to a softball game,
Of the hundreds that I played, yes, you came to probably four,
maybe
perhaps.
five. I think you're
Makes
being
me
stingy.
um
Dramatic effect.
maybe if it was a double header, then 5, yeah, sure. Um, anyways, yeah, it was like someone that you didn't typically expect to come to things. Like wasn't planning my birthday party, wasn't planning like what
No,
I was gonna wear to prom, wasn't taking me to go and buy my prom dress, wasn't doing the things that you would typically imagine a mother to do. And then I would say in college, when I moved away from dad and when I moved away from Canton, when dad moved out of Canton, that is weirdly when things started to pick up between our relationship of, hey, actually, I am your mom. And I don't know if it was because you had the financial obligation of paying for my college experience of like, maybe I should get to know this
well, if
person
there
that
was
I am
ever a
paying.
time to not be your mom, it would have been those 4 years. So
Yeah.
let's just say I really did want to be your mom.
Yeah. So otherwise you would have to deal with the wrath of dad, and I don't think I would want to deal with that. Anyways, I think that it was probably in a joking capacity that you wanted to see what your investment was like. You wanted to see who your investment is potentially of like maybe I should get to know this person because obviously you're a lot different than you are at 11 than you are at 19.
Right.
So I was very different than the last time that I met you, and I don't really remember like the exact moments. Like there were times when we would come up to Cleveland and hang out with you and my stepdad, and it always just kind of felt like you were going to visit a relative. It didn't feel like you were going to go and see your mom. Like there was no joint custody in my
Right.
world. It was just us and dad. And so it really truly felt like you were going to visit somebody that you were just related to. It didn't feel like a mom visit. And it wasn't until college where it truly felt like it was going back to a mother relationship, but it was also difficult because at the same time, I don't think that you were really fully ready to commit back to being full-time mom. And so it was like you got part-time mom, and so you got like uh phone tag, and you wouldn't always like it wasn't always a shoulder to lean on, and it was like sometimes you would hear back and sometimes you wouldn't, and it was
Yeah.
more of like it went from being an aunt to a flaky friend of like, okay, is this person going to be coming to my mom's weekend or is this person not? And it was kind of that question of, okay, what is the relationship dynamic going to be like? And it was a constant state of evolution, which was difficult for my 19-year-old brain to wrap my head around. It was moreover evolution of a relationship that was difficult for 19-year-old me to wrap my head around of like, okay, if she wants to be my mom, then why isn't she being my mom? Why isn't she doing these things? Why isn't she
Yeah.
showing up? Why isn't she? And so that was something that I always had a tough time with. I was like, I don't understand. Like, if she's coming back, then why isn't she just picking up where she left off? And it wasn't where my other friends were at with their relationship with their mom. And so that was really confusing for me too, of like, okay, I don't understand. And it wasn't until I graduated college and matured a bit to really fully understand, okay, your parents are also humans outside of being your parents, and they're dealing with the shit on their own. All of these expectations of what I thought a mom should be in terms
Mhm.
of what you see in the media and what you see your friends doing, and all of those things of pre-constructed notions of quote unquote what a mom should be or how moms typically act. And because I wasn't getting how a mom typically acted, it was difficult for me to figure out where you were at in my life. And so for me, a large portion of my identity revolved around, and it sounds really weird to say it, but revolved around being bucketed into things of like, okay, this is who I am, and this is the things that I like, and these are the things that I don't like. And it was a lot easier to bucket your life into that way. And when I did that, it was a lot easier for me to be like, oh, yeah, my mom and I just don't get along. And I don't like my mom. And I don't want to talk about it. And that was just something that people knew about me. And it was also something that was part of my identity, which is, again, so weird to think about, but it really was. And
Right.
it became who I was. And so allowing for whatever relationship was forming to form was so difficult for me because my identity was that I didn't like my mom. And so
Right.
I was going against my identity to start allowing you to come to things and allowing for you to be present in my life when it wasn't, because I wanted it to kind of be on, or not kind of, I wanted it to be on my terms, but I also didn't want my terms to inhibit you from wanting to reach out, if that makes sense, of being like, okay, she's allowed to come to this, but I'm not going to get my hopes up, so I'm going to tell her that I don't really care if she comes or not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh,
And
yeah, true.
so that was the rationale and mentality that I had, especially during college and even a little bit post college, of
Yeah, a little
what
bit.
that evolution of the relationship really was.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I was definitely getting that vibe, from you. Um, yeah, there's a Mother's Weekend. I mean, if you can come, come. If not, whatever.
Mhm.
So I definitely was feeling like maybe this is too hard for her. She
Mhm.
doesn't want this.
Mhm.
And I definitely was taking the position, even though I wanted
Mhm.
to be your mom,
Mhm.
I didn't deserve to force that on you. This had to be 100% your idea and you're wanting it.
Mhm.
So I never wanted to force anything.
Mhm.
And sometimes it felt like, I think this is that her narrative is
Mhm.
my mother left me and she is a bad person for that. And we don't get along. We
Mhm.
butt heads. So I don't want to be with her.
Mhm.
I kind of knew or felt like that was your narrative. And I didn't want to push myself on you.
Mhm.
You'd already had enough of
Right.
me. Like
Right.
I lost my right to call the shots or even call myself your mother.
Mhm.
I lost my right. And the only one that is able to give me the title of mom back is you, Nico, and David.
Mhm.
Those are the only three human beings.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely hasn't been a linear trajectory at all either. It's like sometimes it would go really well, and then sometimes it would go really poorly. And I don't really like, besides for being a teenage girl and not really being the easiest person to communicate that demographic of people, because being a
Right.
teenage
Well, a
girl
teenage
is
girl is, yeah.
confrontational. Teenage girl doesn't want to be imposed upon. Teenage girl doesn't want, like, just wants to exist. Like, that's simple as that. And
Yeah.
so adding on to that, the additional layer of what was going on that was so different than what my peers were experiencing with their divorced parents. It was like, okay, all of my friends had shared custody and all of my friends had like equal time with their parents. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like what is going on? And so it would be things that would be like reminders of, oh, this is what happened. And then reaffirming that identity. And then taking two steps backwards to a step that we took forward. And it was like, I remember I was watching, what is it called? Marriage, Love Story, something. It was with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson when they get divorced.
Uh-huh.
And the whole movie is about Adam Driver not being able to afford all these lawyers that he needs to get his child's custody, and that it was a whole custody battle and like this. It wasn't really a clean thing, and it was really, really difficult and dirty, and it was really hard on Adam Driver's character. also Scarlett Johansson, but her family had more money, and it was a little bit
Mhm.
easier of a process for her because she had people backing her up. But for me, I was watching that movie, and my takeaway was, so my mom didn't fight for custody for me. And that was my takeaway of the movie. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, divorce is hard. There's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors, blah, blah, blah. And so my takeaway of that movie was just, okay, so my mom didn't fight for custody. Okay. And so it was like
Yeah, that
small things.
hurts.
Yeah. And it
That
was
hurts.
small things like that that I didn't that kind of lingered in the back of my mind of, hey, this is a reminder that of what your mom did to you, and hey, this is a reminder of your mom isn't really your mom. And it was small stuff like that of anytime that we had a forward progression, like going to Cancun, it was like, okay, what can I do to self-sabotage so that I can be in control of this situation? Because my freshman year of college, we went on my spring break trip to Cancun, which
Uh-huh.
was probably our first trip together since the divorce, I want to say.
Yeah, I think
Or
you're
yeah. So that was what, 6, 7 years later?
yeah.
Anyways, uh, but for me, I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna have this be on my terms of, all right, I'm going to be a bitch so that I know why she's leaving. And I'm gonna be a bitch because then that puts me in control of this situation. And that's just what I like to think when I look back on those scenarios. Because there's there's no other reason that I can think of. And I have to believe that the things that I do and the way that I act is somewhat intentional, although it may be subconsciously intentional. But I have to believe that that's what that was. At least
Yeah.
that's what I hope. But yeah, so it was a difficult and non-linear trajectory, trajectory.
Yes. Path.
Yeah, it's also a speech pronunciation class. Anyways, so it wasn't linear. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of arguments. There was a lot of things that kind of showing up to your house on breaks from school and whatnot, and almost intending on a fight for to happen, and showing up pretty much already defeated and not really given the opportunity to allow you to show me what you were trying to do, or like have an explanation of what your intentions were or anything along those lines.
Yeah, remember that time? And I don't know what was leading up to that, that you came home and you were sniffling
Mm-hmm.
because you had a cold or something. And Dan jokingly said, well, that's what happens when you do coke. And you literally turned right back around.
Mm-hmm.
You were supposed to be staying for a couple weeks and
Mm-hmm.
got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like Dan was like, I was just joking.
Well, the
I
funny
I
thing
would
was
have
is that
said
I was doing coke at the time, so it was a little too true.
so. I was just like, oh my God. Like, and then of course I'm just thinking she didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be here, and she was waiting for whatever was going to happen to be like, oh, that's it. I'm out of here.
Yep.
So I didn't want to push you, but I didn't know how to talk to you either, you
Yeah.
know, and not push you away more.
Right. Right. And I would say that it wasn't really until after I graduated college and started living on my own
Mhm.
that I felt like we started having more normal, and I'll say normal in quotations, more normal conversations between a mom and a daughter of like,
Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea how to balance like work and life. And I have no idea how to file my taxes. Actually, that was something I probably called dad for.
Yeah,
But
probably.
anyways, it was more of like things that were more emotional, or things that I would typically call you for, and then things that I didn't really think dad would have like a good grasp on.
Mm.
And it was funny because it was always advice driven. Like I was looking for advice on how to act in a situation, or how to act in a relationship, or something along those lines. And it was funny because, like, thinking back to that time in my life, I was like, why would I go to somebody that I didn't trust for advice? But anyways, so it was kind of that progression. And the next thing that I think that the next step in our relationship was that, because we had been having conversations that were more similar or more structured to what you would typically see a mother and daughter talking about, I remember after I'd broken up with Brett and had been together with Blaine for a little bit and had broken up with him and had switched careers already. And I felt like I had no control of my life anymore. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I wanted to be doing. I had no idea where I was going. And I just felt lost. And I had a lot of questions and I was looking for answers somewhere.
Just
And
spinning. Yeah.
exactly, which is a lot like where you were when you were 25, but you just happened to be married with kids.
100%.
So I was talking to you and you're like, you need to go on like a retreat. You need to do something for yourself that I think would be really healthy for you. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. Nope, 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 nope. And I remember you sent me the link to Miraval, which is a spirituality and wellness retreat. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this frou-frou ass shit. Like
Yeah.
this isn't
I
me.
remember your reaction.
I was like,
It was
this
very
is
tepid.
Yeah, I was like, this is so stupid. Like, this is not who I am. No. And you're like, if you do it, I'll go with you. I was like, I mean, shit can't get worse than it already is. So might as
Okay.
well, might as well go.
Okay.
And I remember going to the spirit of Miraval is that you are solely connected to the person that you're there with and the environment that you're in, which, as I said earlier in this episode, is largely a product of who you become, is your environment and the people you're with. So made sense that you kind of put your phone away and that you were really involved in everything that was
You put it
happening.
to bed. You put him in
Exactly, you
his little
did.
sleeping bag into
Yes,
his
you
bed.
did. Hmm.
Hmm.
And I accidentally washed my sleeping bag for my phone because I took it and it shrunk. So don't wash yours if you have
It shrunk. So you need like, it fits like an iPhone 8 now.
an iPod Nano, more like, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, and the structure of Miraval is that you're doing coursework, if you will, of like breathing exercises, meditation, and spirituality, and understanding your aura, and a bunch of different things that were very, very spiritually intrinsic as well as extrinsic, I would say. And I remember that you told me that we should sign up for this transformative breathwork class. And I was like, what? Sure, I guess. Like,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
I don't
I think I
know.
signed us up for everything, right?
Yeah.
Oh no. I think I signed us up for stuff and then I sent you a link to like, do you want to add on stuff or
Yeah.
switch stuff?
It was like a list. It was basically like when you're signing up for classes in high school or in college, it's like a list of
Yeah.
all of the classes that you can take. And there was really no like explanation as to what the classes were. You kind of just
Very,
had to guess.
yeah, very
It was like
little. Yeah.
a vague description. Um,
You're like,
yeah. But anyways, it ended up being great and delightful. But no, so send over the descriptions. I was like, sure, whatever. Like this seems fine. And I remember going to the transformative breath work and I was freaked out. Like, if you don't know what transformative breath work is, go and look at or go and listen to my episode on rebirth and my spiritual journey, and I'll walk you through what that entire process was like. But the gist of it is that you're in this room and you're doing this breathing exercise that causes your parts of your body to be oxygenated that typically aren't oxygenated, and some of your senses like hearing and sight are deprived. And so you're sitting there and you really have no control of your environment. And me being a control freak was like, what the fuck? Like, this is not something that I want to do. I'm hyperventilating. And I start having like a whatever trip, I guess you would call it. I don't know what
Okay.
you want to call it.
Okay.
But I remember sitting there afterwards and being like, wow, I needed that, first of all. And the only person that knew that I needed that was my mom. And in that moment was probably the first time since I was 12 or 11 that I really felt like you were my mom and that you didn't necessarily need to be there in terms of Mirval and that specific workshop, but you wanted to be there and you wanted to experience it with me. And that was very different than what I had felt like our relationship was prior. And that was the first time that I truly felt like you were actually going to be my mom.
Yeah, I definitely felt a change with you with that trip. And it was hopeful for me because I had for a long time thought I'll I'll never get these kids back.
Mm-hmm.
They'll, and you again, I will say this again, you had every right, all three of you did, to be like, okay, you're my mother, but you're the woman that left,
Mm-hmm.
and we can have a relationship, but you're not going to be my mom,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, remember, uh, it was, I forget what you guys, we were doing something together. It was you and Nico and I, and you guys were, it might have been Mother's Day. And for some reason, you guys came over to Nana's, and you two were, you know, the way you two get when you're together. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, we were hatched. We were
Mm-hmm.
hatched. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't, you're not our mother. You're, and I laughed then because I didn't want to ruin any time we had together, but inside I was dying. I deserved it. I deserved that comment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but right then I was like, I'll never get them back.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly, but surely, there's little things, little signs, little hopeful things
Mm-hmm.
that have happened. And I think Miraval has kind of been the one where I, I had gone out to see you in Boston, maybe a year before that,
Mm-hmm.
and the trip went okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it went better than any other trip we've ever had to get any other
Yeah,
time we've
I would agree.
together. Um, but at Miraval, I felt like I think this is it. I think I can be mom. I think
Mm-hmm.
I I think she's gonna let me be mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make a big deal out of it,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's like one sure way to scare somebody the fuck off is to be a freak about it. Like
That's true.
I could see you being like, oh my God, mom, calm down, don't be this way. But I seriously wanted to cry. Like this has been the best thing ever in my whole life. And to watch my daughter become who she is
Mm-hmm.
as a role model for me, not only of who you are becoming, but that to realize that you're a role model for me, for everything that you've done, how strong you are, and then to accept me back. There's not been a better moment in my recent past.
Hmm. I did not know that.
So
Yeah, no, I would say that that was definitely the most transformational trip and also transformational experience in general for not only myself, but also our relationship as mother and daughter. And although things still aren't perfect, like we don't always get along.
We're two people.
Exactly.
It's like there shouldn't be an unrealistic expectation.
Hmm.
Like, because that's what I was thinking about. I was like, God, that San Diego thing where I just lost my shit.
Hmm.
And I thought, God, I was standing out there while you were in the house, and I'm like, why did I just ruin everything? And I thought, this is just a normal reaction between two adults.
Hmm.
This is me, and that
Hmm.
is her.
Hmm.
She's being her, and I'm being me. I still get to be mom, and she still gets to be Sarah.
Hmm.
And things like that are going to happen. You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. I feel like for me, there was this unrealistic expectation of, okay, if you were going to be mom, you were going to adopt a new identity along with that. And
Uh,
the reality of that is that that doesn't happen. People don't change that way. And that was something that also came along with my growth and my development of, okay, why get mad in this situation? Because that is who mom is. You can't having any other expectation would be kind of crazy. So
yeah,
that for me, yeah, exactly. So that for me was also something of like, okay, just because she wants to be my mom doesn't mean that she's gonna stop being who she was.
right, right. Character wise.
Yes. Yeah. So now I would say today, how would you describe what your life has become slash is versus when you first started talking about your life?
Yeah, that's that is a complex question right there. It sounded easy,
Yes.
but it's not. Um, I'm definitely happy with myself now,
Mhm.
have an inner peace. And
Mhm.
again, I'm still the same person. I didn't become a different character.
Mhm.
I'm happy with myself and what I do and who I am
Mhm.
and where I am in life. I love my job. I love my husband.
Mhm.
I love my children.
Mhm.
I want all these things. Now that I'm whole, I can go out and have relationships with other people. And
Right.
that's what it is. That's what happened. I made myself whole, and now I can have relationships with other people,
Mhm. Right.
genuine relationships. And I feel like, I don't know, this is so cliche, but I feel blessed that
Mhm.
I had this opportunity. There are, I was so lost. And I know you guys knew this. It was hard. It was hard on everybody.
Mhm.
But I went from that person
Mhm.
to finding myself.
Mhm. Right. And that kind of goes with that whole adage of you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's really hard to do that, especially I could imagine being a mom and trying to pour into other people and you physically can't because you don't have even anything for yourself.
Yep. And that's exactly, I was seeing a therapist and they had made a similar analogy. Oh my God, I've lost my kids. Yeah, I can make myself and I can find out who I am, but that doesn't get my kids back. That's time gone. I'm
Mhm.
never going to get that back. And I was very obsessed with that for a while. And he said, listen, you can't give a freezing man your coat if you're naked underneath,
Mhm.
because then you're going to freeze.
Mhm.
You had nothing to give.
Mhm.
And when he said that, as stupid as that sounds, I was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
I didn't have anything to give.
Right.
I was naked.
Yeah.
So you're right to make that analogy. So who am I now? Um, I'm a mom. I'm an anesthesia provider. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I've made really good friendships now. When you are true to yourself and you know who yourself is, you make true and strong friendships
Mm-hmm.
that last. So I'm a friend. Um, I'm an ex-wife. Um, I mean, that's a role.
Yep.
And I think not only, yeah, I'm an ex-wife. Your father is also someone that cuts people like, oh, we're done. We're not, I don't have ever have to talk to you again.
Yep.
But he has continued to talk to me. So, so I'm an ex-wife. Um, yeah, that's who I am now.
Which is all great things, seemingly.
Yes. Yeah. And it all centers around the fact that I found out who I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of, I think that, I don't know if you've read the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, but I think that that's a book that you might find some sort of inspiration from. Um, the author, Glennon Doyle, has not a similar story to you, but uh, enough of a crisis of being a mom and not knowing really how you can be a mom when you can't be yourself sort of
Uh-huh.
narrative. And I found it moving, and I'm not a mom myself. So I think that there
Maybe
was a
I'll
lot
look
of
Untamed.
Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Yeah, it's a great book. She also has a podcast with her wife, Abby Wambach. But nonetheless, that that was something that I also got a good idea of what the term identity really means and how it impacts people differently and how people are expected to do and be things based on the word identity and the identities that you prescribe to them and the identities that they assign to themselves as well. So, just my suggestion in terms of a book to read, but
Like
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Well,
well,
happy Mother's Day to me. This will be my first Mother's Day in a long time that I really am a mom, you
yeah.
know? I feel like I feel like David forgave-ish me
Hmm.
um, first. And then I feel like Nico has also at the same time, you and Nico have been on the same kind of
Hmm.
path with forgiveness.
Hmm.
So I feel like Nico has forgiven me,
Hmm.
um, and that all three of you are going to allow me to have the chance to be mom. So this will be my first Mother's Day in a long time.
Good. Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad that I can affectionately call you mom instead of meaning it in
Fetus?
a yeah, fetus. Instead of meaning it in a derogatory or thinking of it through a derogatory lens. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability and patience with the questions here and the 2 day long sprint. But
That's okay.
I really can't thank you enough. It means a lot for you to not only share it with me, but share it with the world. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks everybody for listening to another episode of the Aspiring Adult Podcast, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.